Hey there, algebra students. Today we need to talk about factoring polynomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. That just means that there is a number other than 1 in front of the squared term, right? So the first question we always want to ask ourselves is there a greatest common factor? Is there a GCF? Can we factor out a GCF? And when we're considering the polynomial 3q squared plus 30q plus 27, yeah, there's a GCF. It's 3, right? All of those terms are divisible by 3, so we're going to start by factoring out a 3. And so this becomes 3 parentheses, right? 3 times what gives you the 3q squared? Well, that would just be q squared plus 3 times what gives you the 30q? Well, that would be 10q, right? Because 3 times 10q would give you 30q. And then plus 3 times what gives you 27? That would be 9. Okay, so we have factored out the greatest common factor, but we're not done. Now we need to further factor this polynomial. And we do that the way we talked about yesterday. We're going to start, we bring down the 3, and then we set up our parentheses. We're breaking it into 2 binomials that will multiply together to give us this guy. Well, what would give us q squared when multiplied together? That would just be q times q, right? But for these terms, we need to figure out what to put there. So what things multiplied to 9? Our options would be 1 and 9, or 3 and 3. And then we ask, well, what do they add up to? Well, 1 plus 9 is 10, and 3 plus 3 is 6, right? And we want the one that adds up to 10 because our middle term has a 10q. So we want the 1 and the 9. So this would be a plus 1 plus 9. And we can double check, right? Q times 9 is 9q, and 1 times q is 1q, and 1q plus 9q is 10q. And that's our middle term. And so we are good. This is our answer. All right? And so we box it up. That's our answer. Well, let's try something else. Let's try another one. Consider the problem 5t squared plus 12t minus 9. We always want to ask, is there a greatest common factor? 5 is prime, right? 5 does not divide evenly into 12 or 9, so nope. Nope, there's no greatest common factor. So it can be factored though. So we're going to make a set of parentheses here. We're going to ask ourselves what things multiply to 5. And that would be 1 and 5. What things multiply to negative 9? You could do negative 1 and 9. You could do negative 3 and 3. You could do negative 9 and 1. Those are all options, right? Well, sometimes we're like, where do we start? What do I do? We're going to pick something and try it, okay? We're not going to sit there paralyzed in fear. We're going to pick something. We're going to try it. So we're going to try a 1t here and a 5t here, right? Because I know that if I multiply those together, I will get 5t squared. You could put the 5t here and the 1t there. It'll be a little bit different from me, but we've already talked about how our answers can look slightly different in that you might have this chunk over here and vice versa. Okay, well, let's try the 9 and the 1, right? Let's try like plus 9 minus 1. Well, what happens when we do this? Let's check it, right? What's 1t times negative 1? Well, that would just be negative 1t, and 9 times 5t, that would be a plus 45t. Does that add up to 12t? No, it does not. So this one is no good. No good. So we move on and we try something else. I'm going to leave the 1t and the 5t in the same places, right? I'm not going to change those. But let's try 3 and negative 3. Let's try 3 and negative 3. I'm going to try a plus 3 and a minus 3, right? This minus sign here tells us that one of our signs will be positive and one will be negative. I forgot to mention that earlier. But the 1t times the negative 3 would be a negative 3t, right? And then the 3 times the 5t would be 15t, and 15t minus 3t would be 12t. And hey, that's what we wanted, right? That's our middle term. So we did it. 1t plus 3 times the quantity 5t minus 3 would be our solution. Okay, one more real quick. Let's say you've got negative 8x squared plus 14x minus 5. The very first thing I want to do is factor out a negative sign so that I have positive 8x squared minus 14x plus 5. You can make that a negative 1 if you prefer. But then we need to break this into two sets of parentheses. We need to factor it further, right? So what things multiply to 8, right? Our options are 2 and 4 or 1 and 8. And for 5, your options are just 1 and 5. Let's start with 1x and 8x. And how about minus 1 and minus 5. They're both going to be minus signs because this guy is a plus sign, right? Right here. And this one is a minus sign. So that tells us it needs to add up to something negative, our middle term, right? And two negatives multiplied to form a positive number. So we will have both negative signs inside our parentheses, but let's check this out. What does this do? We get negative 8x when we do negative 1 times 8x, and 1x times negative 5 would be negative 5x, and if we add that up, that's a negative 13x. That's close, but that's not what we want. That's not what we want. So I'm going to erase that real quick, and I'm going to draw a line through that, and I'm going to do negative 1 times 1x. Actually, no. Let's try the 2 and the 4. Let's try the 2 and the 4 for the 8x. So let's do 2x and 4x. And we want something that will add to negative 14. So I'm going to try leaving the 1 and the 5 right where they're at, right? So negative 1 times 4x would be negative 4x. 2x times negative 5 is negative 10x. And if we add that up, that's a negative 14x, and we did it. Right? That would be my final answer. Negative 1 times the quantity 2x minus 1 times the quantity 4x minus 5. I hope this helps you as you are practicing factoring trinomials. Hope all is well. We'll see you next time.